Now I'm talking about shields, and sometimes it can be too late when it comes to shields. Back in the day, we studied and we found out these points by getting a shield made out of wood, 4mm thick, can stop a punch, can stop someone from biting you, but it couldn't stop a sword. Right? And then they found out they had to change shields over time. It's too late in the moment to fight, change the shields, you know what I mean? And then you have to learn or don't learn from that mistake as we do through life. All sorts of shield protection of how we interact is a way of a shield or not to give the opposite effect. As when you run into a battle with all these, what you call a shield, and they weren't, it becomes a big problem when you're a collective learning these things together. So, when it comes to shields, you've got to make sure that your shield is efficient, and then when it fails, it has a plan B, so it can become a shield again as soon as possible. And so we design, we create, we try to do out there in all sorts of ways to create these shields so we can live in harmony the best we can, or not. And so here in Australia, we can create some shields. Every country can in their own different ways. By having friends around you and allowing those friends to have more. So in the end, with trust and honour and a few other things, connection helps you have these shields. But when you don't have trust and honour and connection properly with others, you will find in that area that the shield is weakened. It's inefficient. They can speak all day long about what they believe they have, like a government in a way that repeats outcomes because the news likes to ask the same question. As that sector also likes to repeat outcomes. Right? And so to stop all that, we educate ourselves and we tick collectively. Over time we've lost leaders as we've done that. But over time we've gotten leaders because we also do that. And we fail in a lot of sectors of where we think is important. We think sometimes that cool is better than not cool, and pick that decision and then run out to battle. As that shield that I was talking about earlier, that is only 5mm thick, and add all that shit to it. It's still not enough. Looked pretty bloody cool, right? Was advertised very well, right? And when you do that to clueless people who like to have their trust in you as it makes their life easier instead of studying, and as long as you're doing it, they will do it too, you will find that they all run into the same problem field, right? Collectively. And then we have small collectives, and then we have bigger collectives, and so on, as we try to come one. As soon as we become one, we will be able to move on to space and other problems better. Once we've solved the main priorities. You don't want to be bunching off somewhere when you're in credit and failing in other areas and put yourself on a time limit. If you don't want to be on a time limit, well, you sort out the priorities of housing, defence and all these things. And then you'll be able to work on science and other extra stuff, bonuses as they call it. If you work on the bonuses and that's all you're doing for the school, I was told this once with my stepdad, he's a panel beater, and I wanted to start panel beating cars, so I wanted to do what he did. Guess what I want to teach you what I do? Come down to the panel shop, and I get down there, and then he's like, alright, now, you want to go tidy up those tools? Or just hand me some tools for a while. And I'm like, oh, okay, sort of get the point, right? And then I'm like, okay, I did that one day. Now I want to do the panel meeting. And it's like, no. Now you want to go sweep some floors. And you want to go talk to someone. And all that kind of stuff. Before you can go rushing off into the main thing. There's other sets of priorities that you need to know. Otherwise you'll create a big mess. And then who's going to clean it? Right? And so I had to learn that way. Before, it was a little while before I was getting that bang around with stuff. You know what I mean? And so, when it comes to shields, we get back to shields again, we need to get along with people around us, and the ones that we find in certain areas more of a shield than what we can, or number one, war zone, like back in the day we used to build many walls of defence. The more walls of defence you have, the better. If you have a wall, then you're going to have some water. Water's like a wall because it slows them down. Walls not something to stop completely. Depends on how much it's coming at you, right? Like the weather is why you should build good buildings, because you know that something could happen. Unless you're a gambler that I talked about, go ahead, repeat, gamble, take the risk. But when you do that, you shouldn't ask God to feel sorry for you. Because God's calling you a gambler. You gambled, you lost everything, and now you want me to solve your problems. Have you ever heard of those gamblers? And they will come, as they will try. And some should get help. Depends on what they're willing to prove. Time proves things. You shouldn't help a gambler straight away. Because you see plenty of movies that you like to advertise where it comes to gamblers. Say they're healed, but they're not, right? And so it takes time to find out that they've changed. And then when you know they've changed, then perhaps you can help them down the road once they've learned the lesson of gambling, right? Which is a little bit like humans now going through issues with the weather, right? They could have had a choice to build such buildings. They know what buildings can last. There's people that have proven about concrete buildings when it comes to in America, and certain design of domes in certain ways. And there's a whole dude that done it back in the 70s, I think it was, or 60s, mid 80s. Oh, it was a while back. And even had one of these houses. Go look at me, I'm still here. Just got a 20 up the yard, and just give everyone a jump. And showed that you can build these houses at the same cost, if not cheaper, than a lot of the houses that were built. As they stuck to the straw houses, you know, huh? And they gambled, and then they passed their gamble off, as some of these people have actually gambled insurance, right? Which is insurance companies that are allowed to insure these areas, as I've been telling in a few clips before about insurance companies shouldn't insure them. Might stop them from making such things. But the insurance companies like to gamble too. That's what insurance is. So I guess they're just working together. How's it working out for that? Most of the time you get a lot of insurance companies as they like to gamble, instead of just being right. You can be right and gamble, but they're more of a gamble ever. And I'm saying that now because their history in time has shown that a lot of them collapse as their gamble doesn't work out to them. And the people win. Definitely they get educated, which is scams and schemes. And that's what happens in the gambling system today, which is amazing that it still runs because there's not many too bright people. So it shows that the system, when you have gambling around, it shows that your people aren't too bright in that. Right? Because you can find out certain tactics of gambling, it shows about it, you play, where you can turn gambling into your money-making machine and everyone can do it, and that would crush them, you all win and get their money, and they'll lose because they're using a system where they can use against you. So they're doing, I can do it, but you can't. And when you do what we do, it shows the movies become an avenue as we're watching cameras and we need to, right? As we're ripping you, and you can't do it back, right? And that's just the way it is in that area, isn't it? And so, and that works in all areas. And so at the moment, people are gambling, and what they do, if I ever got the opportunity to build a home, or a business wanted me to build a home, stuff like that, that was my job. I'd make sure I build homes right. I won't go the full first. Okay, first we'll make it right, Because once we make it right, it's not too hard to put the aesthetics on the outside or within it to change it up, the colour and all those things, or put in something within the concrete to make it cooler. But that's later on down the track. So when you want it cooler, you know that means the cost just go up a little bit more, so you get other choices. But at least you go from the standard, you see, and then all of a sudden you'll see all these cooler places, not as same as that dude, but you didn't allow that dude to ever succeed because you wanted to call straight away. You're rushing. Huh? And now you have all these places that are gambling, and now, because you gamble, the future's come to time, and the future's also shown this time to come. It happens in history. Bad disasters, right? And then you, right, build shit and gamble with it. And then what do you expect to happen? Big Daddy has to pay for insurance, you scream out guards, in some cases will hurt, right? For your own mistakes collectively or chosen, right? And you choose because of the sheep factor, the following, right? They built it, I built it, now we're all in the same boat, but now we're screaming another area, right? Now what happens if there was an area that built it right? So they can get pretty much 90% of extra problems that might turn up, like a tornado turns up, and it's the regular tornadoes definitely, it might have to be super high, and it might rip off a window or two off of their house, right? And that'd be a worse outcome, so they get a little damage. But most time, they breeze through it, as they didn't get a Chinese product, as some would say. Right? The Chinese product's heavy. Inefficient and made inefficient materials which can't get through the life of Australia. Some would say working with stuff in the outback and with the plant stuff like that, it's cold. They send Chinese stuff. Anyway, I've got a name for that, so I've used that for a point. And that's that. And so what's going on today? So we have nature, right, and life and meaning, and then we've got our immaturity, which is humans collectively not getting the basics when it comes to communication. So, now one of they're failing, because if you fail in the basics of communication, then you're going to fail in all the other sectors more likely too, because the other sectors need the first basic of communication. Well, communication, truth, knowledge, not deceit, tricks. I'm better. I'm going to hold this off. You can figure it out. You know the ones that play games like that? I can tell you, you can figure it out. But then the people might go, well, I'm not going to play with you anymore, and it's boring. And then one goes, if you've got cockiness and the sins, we'll go, this is the typical one, because I used to go against them all the time. We'll go, oh, you don't want to play with me anymore. Right? And I go, huh? Well, they go, huh? I used to hear these people say it, I've been there myself, I moved on to something. Someone just walk away, who'll play with you again, but just keep kicking their ass, and then you're not even helping them about it. Right? So I want to, instead of keep kicking their ass, I help them along, so they can at least enjoy what's going on with me, right? And learning out. And then I'll teach them, try to make it a learning experience, and then try to make it fun, where instead of just letting them beat you, because I tried that, and then they realised, you just let me, you don't like me, you're not doing what you should do. Now, like, oh, you just let me beat you, because I tried that, and go on and hang around. They didn't work in the end, they found out the truth, right? So the best thing to do, that I found out, if you're walking at you, well, you can go the other way, most people go the other way, self-knowledge and how, but we'll leave it at that. See you later, no one I know you, right? But everyone should still at least want to have to connect. There's times where you've got to connect with everyone at a certain time, and it'd be better to connect than to be the poor geek in the corner, not dancing around it, because everyone rather just laugh at him what he can't do, instead of helping him, right? And they're there for a reason. If they didn't want to be there at all, they wouldn't be there. They're obviously there for a connection in some sort of way, not to you laugh at, right? Perhaps you can at least give the assholes laugh behind people's backs instead of in their face. And yet we see more and more of that today, because they believe that it's cool. And that's that. And what does cool mean? And parenting that I got told in the right sector, in the Bible tells us and stuff like that, is they believe it's immaturity in the end. And you use cool over a lot of factors. Right? And that's what we're doing. They use cool in the shields factor, they use cool in our housing factor. And that's not cool, because that's where you're meant to be safer. And you're gambling with your safety. Right? Now those you end up getting locked in that. And how does all that get, follow along the mockers and follow the sheep on that? They all want you to follow the sheep. Well, you make sure that that's the materials they mainly get. And then they don't whinge about it, they accept it. They start using the materials. Right? And you let the company win. Instead of saying, you go, no, this is what I want. This is viable. This is recyclable. We have to build it this way to make it recyclable. So it's got to have a bit of thinking, not just changing materials, with education, right? Of when you use that materials, it has what they call an inheritance kind of rule, right? Where you can only, if it gets damaged, you've got to write down why it got damaged and how you damaged it and how you change that block, right? Because that block can always be recycled. You put that together with water will break out, the rock will outbeat water. We talked about this in old experiments of the human pyramids and stuff. Right? So what have you learnt from that? Right? What did we try to learn then, or did learn, or something taught us about building? Was pyramids standing up? Why do they talk about ancient buildings standing up to earthquakes, and now we've got buildings that where do we go wrong, right? The devil comes in, the deformness in that, right? Of words of speech, or something better, and then uses what's got better to propaganda what's better. Like, how do I mean by that? The devil, the first thing it did in the Garden of Eden when they were naked, was come in and propaganda that its body was better than yours and that you needed. Its dick was smaller to fit in that smaller hole. Its dick was bigger and better and it's comfortable, and if that one can stretch, we can make this work. You know what I mean? The devil sin of propagating what it wants to get an outcome. Right? Bullying. And in the end, what does that cause? In a playground, if you let bullying succeed, as parents and teachers used to tell me, is that it fails. It gets worse. It becomes worse. Right? And that will become a failure more than what it is now. Right? And so, bullying is only around for when things are already failing. See, when something fails and it's already righteous and it doesn't want to listen righteously, which is like someone speaking to your kid and you go, definitely want to go do this, go do that, and they go, no, next minute they're throwing toys at your other kid's head, right? And then you go, shit, and you're trying to use words to stop it. You go, no, you can't throw toys, and it's getting angrier with the words you're speaking. You have to literally, physically get the child, hold it back, but then it wants to swing and punch you in the head. You can't quite hold it all down and swing it. In the end, you've got to do a point where you've got to show who's boss, right? And then you squeeze and you hold and you go, look, then you calm down and stop the squeezing, right? And you see a lot of people do that to people who are a bit slow and have tantrums, right? To try to contain them from hurting themselves and walk just by giving them a little bit of a pain now, right? Anyway, that's what a parent's saying here. Right? But if you don't do all that, you just go, oh, what? Oh, you got to. And sometimes people go do that and someone walks in. Well, they know someone walks in, right? In the moment, people, why you should never do that. And someone walks in as you're, and the kid's now going, no, stop that! Right? As someone walks in the moment, person would say, how dare you? And act like this, how dare you? Oh, like this, even though they know you, and all this kind of thing, they might be in a moment, and then they have one sector stuck and locked in their brain, or thinking like a law-abiding citizen. Once it's law, they will do it, right? It's their religion, they have to follow it. They grow from it. Until it doesn't, when it doesn't, they won't be that like citizen. Right? But there's those people, because they love to use the law to make them grow. Right? And that's what law's for. But it depends on how you grow. Like you grow on those houses, right? And you're using things. Back in the day, we used to be hunters and gatherers, and so we were pretty lazy, looked around, and we had to run around and just eat things. It's pretty easy life, right? It's like you don't have to go to the supermarket around, you've got plenty around. In fact, we can go back to hunt and gather if you want to. Some people still do it, as they're using the last bit of the loopholes to be hunters and gatherers, as the rest of the world locks it all off for everyone else. Right? But we can return it. But the devil doesn't like that to happen. it will put up bars, cause issues, make bullshit like the pigeon story. You see my pigeon hop? Make an issue even worse instead of just trying to help it. And then say it's bad new colour. And in fact, human history has talked about their own history going like that. And what do they learn now from 2,000 years of recorded history? They learn, well, we have from the Jesus story. What do you say now? So not knowing what you're doing. When you're in a collective lock-in, like I was just talking about, what does that mean? Is that sheep? The sheep doesn't know, it just follows. It jumps off the cliff and when it gets to the cliff, it's already following. That's the trap of it. They can't see above the other sheep. Like if you're trying to back out of the car and it's just big, you probably drive, can't see the side. And so you got to hope that your rules of what you do all work out. And your sheep now just got to back out very slowly. If while you're doing that, have you ever seen people try to sneak past you? Arseholes, as you like to call them. As you're trying to back out and sneak past and you wait for a couple more because they go past the other one. I want to sneak past and no one wants to wait and really play these rules properly. When you don't play them together in the end, you don't function. And so you get a lot of car crashes in car spots because you've got cars that you can't see through and too big. You should maybe have their own area. If you did that, perhaps they might have a seat because they have higher seats and other problems. But instead of fixing problems, you pass them up. And you see the problem just grows when you pass them up too. When it comes to that area. And insurance pay for it. You got to have to pay for it. All the mistakes that the human malfunction in a way. They're trying to do the rule, but you only need one to fuck up like the car engine. Certain parts are priorities, and if they don't work, they fuck up the guy. People are slowing down, people go down, there's that courtesy, you need to do on others which you done with you, but they don't really, because they all want to get past it, and all don't care, they just seen 5 cars go, you get it? But yet, people do it, don't they? And that's just one area. How do you solve all those areas? Well, you go up high, educate a big area, make sure it happens. Sometimes you can't fix a dog, teach a dog new tricks, and it's best to just have what you got, and deal with that. But at least over time that disappears, but you can fix the new. You stop, you teach the new how to be, the kids, stuff like that. And then you have to hopefully get along with these dogs to allow you to change. That's why in governments I believe that you should have a mixture of ages. They don't want to get races into big government, but ages is also a factor. Right? So they understand and can debate properly in those areas of how those ages feel, right? And how they want to move on. Because you'll have the oldies going, I just want to be this, so you're going to have to work out to leave and be that, which is a little bit like the smoking and drug factor, where you go, instead of cutting them off, you can go the righteous way, you go, right, we want to stop here with that script, you guys keep carrying on the way they are, that's your choice. We're going to teach this way, we're going to offer this way to these people who haven't started yet. We better want to head this way for them. When it comes to the future and upgrading, we head more this way and go from there, right? And these other people can either change themselves by watching and seeing that other things can work, right? And that's righteous meaning. But instead, we have a government system coming in with the whip. And wham, if they don't listen with the whip, then they're all fucked. And that's sad. And the whip doesn't even know what it's doing. Right? Like Donald Trump saying at the moment. The fuckers don't even know what they're doing with the whip. So first you're going to go higher again, make sure the person with the whip and the people with the whip know what they're doing. They've learned all the righteous things of righteousness, they've chosen. You all need to well selectively choose in the middle. What can we work in the middle? The animals, with the buildings, all those type of things on the standards. And then you can knock yourselves out with once you sort out areas like that, like customising a bulletproof car. It's still going to be bulletproof, right? But you can make it cooler. But if you skip all the other things and run ahead, well, you're just making that cool shield and gambling and passing the buck. Little groups like to do it, which is your leaders in certain areas, and tend to pass the buck. Right? When you work collectively, you put it in, but if they fuck up, one has to fuck up here, it's your leader, he just keeps passing the buck to you, right? And you don't want too much of that. and you don't want your leaders to be repeating the same thing, definitely in another leader and another leader and another leader, because if you have that, that means you're getting nowhere pretty much. And that's a bad outcome over time to see that you're pretty much in a facade and getting done with trickery and accepting things. So like a child saying they know, but they don't really do. So anyway, have a good one. See you later.